ladies and gentlemen, so happy to have back on the show a man I call a friend of mine from Michigan. It reminds me of myself when I was younger, if I was a way better athlete than I was. And this and this man is the world catch wrestling champion. He is now a professional MMA fighter, just having won his first fight by submission in less than 1 minute. We are talking about the awesome man from Michigan, former captain of the Michigan State Spartans wrestling team, Mr. Curran Jacobs. Welcome back to the show, Curran.
Thank you, my man. Thank you for having me. It's been a while.
It has, man. It has, man. Last time was a lot of fun. It had some funny stuff there where Adam was had to get called away from running the boards and things were going, and you got to see it unfold. And I handled it like a champ, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Thank you.
As always.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was a fun and funny moment. But anyway, man, I'll tell you, one thing is funny. I know you won that great tournament at the Snake Pit with those three matches, but I think in a row. And I think that maybe for a few months they've been up. I know originally it was hard to see the entire videos, but man, I just watched those videos. I think just two of them with the Johnny Buck and then the other guy before. Who were the three guys that you beat in the same night a year ago?
Johnny Buck was first, and we went almost 30 minutes.
Yep.
And then it was Eric Hammer, who was Josh Barnett's longtime training partner and really good friend.
Right.
And we went about 25 minutes, and then I went 34 minutes with Brandon Ruiz.
Nice. I watched the Hammer and the Buck fights, and both of them I think ended with submissions by rear naked choke, right?
I call it a sleeper hold because of my catch wrestling.
That's right. That's right. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. More famously known as a rear naked choke. I got all three of them in a rear naked choke.
That's awesome. And one of the things that I noticed, along with, man, how much size you were giving away and the fact that you still beat these guys, but just your tenacity and your skill. I remember that after those three matches, which were like, what, 20 to 30 minutes each, back to back to back, it looked like someone had taken your face and run it across the gravel road. I never forget that, man. Your face had so many welts on it. How long did it take for that to heal, man? That was incredible.
First of all, taking a shower later that night absolutely sucked.
Yes.
I tell you, I had security come and knock on my door asking us if everything was okay because I took the antibacterial dial soap.
Wow.
And I had to wash my face, and it was brutal. It took about 3 weeks. I actually had to see a dermatologist and get a special cream to ensure that I had no scarring on my face.
Yeah, and it looks like you don't. You look as good looking as always.
Thank you, my brother.
You're welcome, my brother. You're welcome. And I'll tell you that the tenacity and the pain you had to deal with there, I think, was so enormous that I really think you're very well prepared for MMA. I know you were undefeated in an amateur career, and then that was a few years back. But coming back in here to pros, man, I think you're ready for the pain. I think you have absolutely the ability to go to that place and to handle it, don't you?
Yeah, man, over a very long career, I've kind of found the secret ingredient, how to prepare physically, but more importantly, mentally.
Yeah.
And after that tournament, that really solidified my thinking on MMA. It was up in the air when I achieved the #1 spot. I was the #1 middleweight in Michigan as an amateur, and I thought that was pretty cool, and I didn't really know if I wanted to continue on. But after winning that tournament, it really left me no more questions. I was like, if I can do that, I can fight anybody.
Without a doubt. And you know what it reminded me of? And this will show my age a bit, but I could pretend I was 6 years old when I was watching these fights, which I was not. But I wasn't. Let's just say I was fairly young. But I remember watching Evander Holyfield back in his heyday, and I was a boxing fan since I was a kid, and I remember that he just, especially in the first 10 years of his career, and even later in his career, he was still great. But in those first 10 years, his will and his determination was so strong that it's like you just could not imagine this guy losing. Like, I remember when he fought Michael Dokes, who was an amazing former champion then, and he was about 25 pounds heavier than Holyfield. They were beating the crap out of each other, and I just remember thinking, man, this guy Holyfield is so mentally strong. I just don't think you can break this guy. And then he finally caught Dokes. And then when Holyfield went up against against George Foreman. And if you haven't seen that, or any of you guys watching have not seen that fight, it was epic. I think it was 1991 or two. And George Foreman, even though he was 41 or 2 years old, he's always was one of the most powerful, hardest punching men in boxing. He was about 40 or 50 pounds heavier than Holyfield, and they beat the crap out of each other. Foreman was hitting Holyfield with punches that he was knocking guys like through the ropes, like Mike Tyson. He was. I remember he hit a guy so hard the guy's hair flew up in the air. You know, when he hit him, right? And he was hitting Holyfield with these shots that were just devastating, and Holyfield would just roar back and hit him with like a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 punch combination. And then to George's, to a testament to George, he would come back and throw 2 or 3 bombs. And but anyway, your determination and your warrior spirit, man, is just absolutely impressive, and I think is going to carry you far, my friend.
Thank you, my man. Listen, I failed so many times, and I think that's why I am where I am now. You know, I lost the state championship. I was one match away from becoming an All-American.
Yep.
And looking back on that, it was because I'm a late bloomer. I didn't truly 100% believe in myself up until 4, maybe 5 years ago, a few years after my collegiate career. So here I am now.
That's it, man. Well, you're the best you could be. And I really find that to be the case a lot, man. I think you're 30, 31, right?
I'm 31.
A lot of people don't come into their own or their prime until then, and especially in your late teens and early 20s, almost nobody is really as good as they're going to be or as mentally strong as they're going to be. So it makes sense. You know, once in a while someone is, but usually not. So I think you're coming along at a great at a great clip. But I wanted to tell you that, man, your how can I say this? The speed that you put on those chokes, the sleeper rear naked choke, is really impressive. That's one thing I noticed, and I'm a purple belt in BJJ, and so I'm still learning. And one of the things that I noticed is the speed that you put on the chokes reminded me kind of Damian Maia. And if you look at that last match with Maia where he beat Ben Askren, as soon as he saw the opportunity, and he only had one arm to do it. I don't know whether Askren was holding his other wrist or whatever, but he slapped the choke on and he put it at an angle that was so perfect that he just put his head behind it and locked it. And not only was the speed of it amazing, but the angle, and I'm like, damn. I'm like, that's what high-level grappling is, and I can tell because I'm not there yet. But maybe one day. But yeah, no, you impressed the hell out of me with how quickly you slap those chokes on. That's like serious high level stuff, man. So I wanna give you a big compliment on that.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you. Yeah.
That will serve you well, absolutely in the future. So man, yeah, definitely a lot of work I'm sure you put in on that, huh?
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's what it's all about, is drilling, and that's what I've taken into grappling that a lot of most Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu players aren't familiar with. And wrestling, you spend hours and hours of just, reps. So being able to practice with high-level grapplers, high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu players that taught me to keep my limbs close and to watch out for those chokes, they've really given me the confidence to go out there and do what I work so hard during training.
Absolutely. Now, question for you. In the catch wrestling, you wore wrestling shoes because it was allowed. In MMA, you're not allowed to do that. I remember in the early days with Dan Severn, Mark Coleman, Mark Kerr, and these guys, and I think actually at some points in all of their careers, they were allowed to wear the shoes, Randy Couture, but I think shortly after that, that was no longer allowed. And I remember them saying, that's actually going to take these guys a little time to get used to. Now, you did have 3 amateur MMA fights, and so you had experience with it. But is that something that is a little bit of a transition at all, or was it originally to have to go barefooted, or what's your take on how it was when you first had to do that, and where you're at as far as being able to do that now?
Yeah, so check this out. My first amateur fight, it is on YouTube. I look like a wild man. I'm throwing haymaker left and right like an absolute maniac.
Yep.
And one of the biggest reasons why is I made a huge mistake training with wrestling shoes the entire camp. I think I trained 2 months for that fight. leading up to that fight, and I wore wrestling shoes all the way up to it. So during the fight, walking in there barefoot, I felt naked.
Yeah.
I felt vulnerable. And I kind of panicked a little bit, and that's why I blazed forward.
Right.
And fortunately, you know, I caught him because, yeah, the nerves and the adrenaline were really working against me.
For sure.
So after that fight, I pledged, you know, to never train for MMA, especially with wrestling shoes on. I wrestle barefoot now. The only exception is when I'm preparing for a catch wrestling match, because shoes are obviously, you know, they really help out a lot as far as traction, and so catch wrestling matches, I'll train with shoes on. MMA, not a chance.
Makes sense. Which of your opponents in that 8-man tournament where you fought 3 fights in that same night, which one of those guys went without the shoes? Was that Hammer?
No, that was Johnny Buck.
What was up with that? Yeah, did it surprise
Which surprised me because he's a Division I wrestler. He's a Bellator veteran.
Yeah.
Very well respected grappler. I think that he really is loyal to the 10th Planet BJJ system.
Yes, I saw that.
I think that that's why he went barefoot. Another guess would probably be toe holds, ankle locks. It's a lot easier to slip out of submissions barefoot than it is with shoes on.
Yes.
So
that makes sense. Speaking of which, did you see that YouTube video, or it was on Facebook or somewhere? You got to look at it. Dean Lister, the Boogeyman, put it out there. If you remember, he was one of the first Americans to win, I think, at Abu Dhabi, to win everything. And yeah, he was amazing. He put out a video which is really pretty funny. He's a really good guy. I've met him once, where he's demonstrating. He was trying to demonstrate a toe hold on one of his students, and he said, okay, and he's got the guy's foot under his armpit, and he's starting to show it, and he goes, okay, now here's what you want to do, and the guy pulls his foot out, and he said, all right, very funny. He goes, all right, now I'm trying to show this, and then he does this, pulls it out, then he puts it in, and he kind of tucks it, and he goes, now try to get out now. And then the guy turns his foot and pulls it out, and Dean Lister starts chasing him. It's really funny. It's like the guy's screwing up the demonstration, especially that second one where Dean really digs in there, and then he goes, try it now, and the guy just turns his foot to the right and pulls it out. You gotta see that. And,
I'll check it out.
Yeah.
You said it's on YouTube?
I think it is either YouTube or Facebook. But what I like is that Dean put it out there. I mean, if his student would have put it out there just to make Dean look bad, I wouldn't have liked that. But Dean obviously saw the humor in it.
That's hilarious.
It really is, and especially though. But it made me, as just a purple belt, actually think, I'm like, oh wow, wait a second. So if someone's really digging in and getting your foot under their armpit, you're just turning it way over to the side and you pull it out. And I'm like, great. And I never thought of that. So it actually helped me. Yeah. So yeah, sure, you knew that, definitely for many years. But man, well, you won in Michigan that first fight, 57 seconds. And I know we talked about it before then, and you were really prepared, and you were kind enough to even let me share some insight I had for you, and I really appreciate that. This guy, no problem. This guy, and I really appreciate it. This guy, he kind of rushed you. You landed the takedown, and he really didn't get a chance to try anything tricky at all, or did he?
No, I was actually really shocked. I get in there. Well, first of all, I get in there and I raise my fist and I go, and I gave him one of these, like, hey, we're going to touch gloves?
Yep.
He kind of he was like,
waved it off? No. Oh, man.
And I was like, oh, okay. All right, man. It's on. Yeah. So right when the bell rang, I went forward, and I immediately, I could just tell that his energy, he was coming after me.
Yeah,
he wanted to knock my head off my shoulders.
Yeah.
But I was really surprised that he was moving forward. I mean, I went in thinking he was going to kind of stand his ground and pick his shots, but he came in, he swung that hard right, and I ducked. I felt his fist glide over my head, and I just took him down and swarmed him, Khabib style.
I love it. Also reminiscent of your good friend, the natural Randy Couture, in some of his early matches. you know, and
Yes.
yep.
Yes.
And this guy didn't even try that Jorge Masvidal flying knee, did he?
Hey, secretly, I'm going to expect that every single
Yes,
time I
yes.
fight now.
And that's one of the things I told you. I said, just in case, don't let this guy look like he's gonna run to the side and then duck your head down like this, and then, you know, and then get caught. You know. But speaking of that
Yeah.
happening, you know, Ben Askren was an amazing competitor. He is now retired. What's your, you know, I mean, everyone realizes the guy was amazing. It's unfortunate that he didn't get his shot in the UFC until he had competed for like 7 or 8 years. I mean, I don't think it's going to take you that long to get to the big time. You never know. But I guess I just think that Dana White didn't really like his style. But he was really amazing. What do you think? If you could give me your opinion as from a, you know, a high level grappler and fighter that you are, what can we look back on Ben Askren and say? We can look back and say he was one of the best collegiate wrestlers probably ever to compete, or at least in the top 10 in MMA. He had an amazing style where he would ragdoll everyone. He did catch Robbie Lawler. He got caught by a knee by Jorge Masvidal, which was really not, I think, anything that shows him sucking as a fighter, as much as the fact that Masvidal kind of baited him into looking like he was going to run away and then ran at him. And then for his next loss, he did really, really well against an amazing Damian Maia. So
Yeah.
I think he leaves without leaving any sort of a crappy legacy. Yes, he did lose 2 out of 3 UFC fights, but I don't really think those fights are anything to be embarrassed or ashamed about that make him look really bad as an overall MMA competitor. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely not. And the biggest thing that I always say to everyone is most people will live their entire lives and never experience that kind of pressure.
Yeah.
Ben Askren came in, all eyes were on him. You know, he did do a lot of talking, but throughout his career and even back during his collegiate career, I mean, he's a talker. He is an entertainer, phenomenal athlete. I think that what he has done throughout his athletic career is just absolutely phenomenal. Phenomenal. And he
Definitely.
has solidified himself as, you know, one of the best wrestlers to ever compete in MMA. The man did amazing things, and it's kind of unfortunate that people are going to remember the Masvidal knee,
Yeah.
are going to remember the Damian Maia submission.
Yeah.
But I just think that he is a remarkable athlete, just absolutely tough as nails. That guy, you know, he made us wrestlers proud.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, I'm sad to see him go. I feel like he could do a lot more,
Yeah.
but you never know what he has planned for himself, and he's really intelligent.
Yeah.
So whatever he's got going on is probably the best. It's probably you know, best for him to move on to the next adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, one of my jujitsu brothers told me something really interesting. I don't know if it's true or not. And if it is, then it really kind of means he's absolutely forced to move on. Apparently, he has some sort of injury. And I know you guys that have grappled for years, it takes an enormous toll on the body. For some people, the toll is even worse than for others. But apparently, some sort of injury in his hip joints or his
That's
hips
right.
itself, right? And that he has to have a surgery where the doctors have said, when they fix this and put this back together, if he had any kind of dramatic impact or serious, you know, shock, you know, by being thrown or landed, thrown on the ground or kicked or whatever, that he could be paralyzed. And so it's kind of like he's saying basically the only way he could ever compete at MMA again is if he's willing to risk being paralyzed with having his structure being severely compromised by this surgery. So, you know, if that's the case, then, you know, there really is no other choice for him. And that's unfortunate. But that wrestling, that funky wrestling was really amazing. The fact that he, you know, really his wrestling, I mean, it's really too bad they could never have made that Khabib fight, because I think so many people, right, that would have been just amazing, wouldn't it? Because
Oh,
you know, see that Dagestani sambo and top powerful top game crushing control wrestling, and then Ben's funky freestyle wrestling and just the stuff he does, and you know, man, that would have really been amazing. But he was incredible. But it definitely shows how much wrestling can still do in the sport. And what I want everyone to know, what I want everyone to know that I think is really, really interesting about Curran Jacobs here and what he brings is the catch wrestling and the submissions that Curran has, having done it for many, many years. And the D1 collegiate wrestling that he brings is a very unusual combination. Ben Askren was kind of getting the submissions, but I think had only kind of worked on it for maybe 4 or 5 years. And I think you've worked on submissions for about twice that, haven't you, Curran?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Ben was kind of still learning the submissions. The only other examples you have is Jake Shields, who was a good jiu-jitsu black belt. His wrestling was good, but not quite like a D1 wrestler. You have Damian Maya, who's also jiu-jitsu was amazing, but wrestling also not quite like a D1 wrestler.
Right.
So who is the guy that has, I think Chris Weidman to an extent in his prime, and even he, I don't feel had the submissions that you have. So I honestly think, and I've told you this before, Curran, and I really believe it, that your tenacity, your strength, your conditioning, D1 wrestling, and not only amazing submissions, but these catch wrestling submissions make you really kind of a unique MMA competitor that I don't think we've seen yet.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a long road, many years, a lot of hours of hard work.
Yeah.
And now's the time. Now's the time. Just had my fight on Saturday, and
Yep.
that's definitely the plan. I definitely plan on climbing straight to the top.
Yep.
The only guys that I'm going to run into who will pose challenges are high level Division I wrestlers, but at the same time, they lack what I have, and that is many years of submission training as well as catch as catch can submission knowledge.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
And I think that's going to be huge. So all it comes down to really is getting your striking as good as it can. Even if you didn't get it that great, I still think what you have is amazing. But if you get your striking even decent, then I think you're going to be, I mean, even without it, you'll be fine. But with even decent striking, I think you'll be good. And correct me if I'm wrong, but in Michigan, even though you were a wrestler and I wasn't a wrestler growing up, everyone in Michigan, it seems like kids are always punching stuff. Every kid almost has a punching bag in their house. Am I right?
Yeah, hey, and you're a Michigander.
Yeah.
I was backyard boxing
Yes.
at like 9 years old, 10 years old with my brothers and my cousins, and
nice.
And even had my little sister get in there every so often, put on the gloves.
I love it.
Yeah, there's a lot of country folk Michiganders. They just were kind of born experimenting with combat, backyard.
Yes.
Backyard brawling. So,
absolutely.
But yeah, growing up, I had access to punching bags. And my dad is a longtime martial artist, and so is my older brother. And so, just passing on the knowledge to me at a very young age kind of gave me that warrior spirit at a very young age. And it's just, it's bloomed finally in the last 5 years. So.
Yep. And I think being young and understanding the dynamics of moving and getting some pop on your punches, the fact that you were doing that when you were a kid really helps, because you look at someone like Damian Maya and even someone like Ben Askren, both of them brilliant fighters, but I don't have a feeling that they had the punching bag when they were a kid, and that they just started to kind of get the dynamics of throwing punches when they were maybe 25 years old or something, or even 30. And I think that's why it's just they weren't really able to get even kind of a mediocre skill set. But I will bet that since you've been doing it since you were a kid, you probably have a little bit of pop on your punch. Not to try to give away a secret, but I have a feeling that you, if we're trying to say, can you get to at least decent striking, I would have a feeling you're probably there now. Am I right?
Well, I'm working with one of the best in my opinion. He is Rashad Evans' first MMA coach. He's the one that led Rashad through the Ultimate Fighter 2 to win that contract, and that's Joaquin Rodriguez with Murcielago MMA. And he's got some killers on his squad, and they've been been giving me a lot of their knowledge in exchange for my catch wrestling knowledge and my ground knowledge. But the biggest thing is just overcoming the fear of getting hit. You just have to accept you're going to get hit and move forward and inflict your own damage. But nobody's going to see that until somebody can stop my takedown, which I believe very few will be able to. Very few. No one has been, everyone that I've sparred and trained with has been unsuccessful in stopping me from taking the fight to the ground. And then once it's on the ground, you know, I apply that pressure, and it's damn near impossible for them to get back up to their feet.
Absolutely. And I think at 185, it's not a division known for amazing collegiate wrestlers in either UFC or Bellator. I'm sure there's someone I'm maybe not thinking of now. I guess Weidman until he moved up, but he's toward the end of his career. But there's not a ton. And so, yeah, no, I think that's going to be absolutely a skill set that's going to be incredible. But we've only got a couple, maybe a few minutes left, Curran. So I'm going to say, I know you're on good terms with Randy Couture. You're a friend of his, and also at least an acquaintance and on good terms with Josh Barnett. So you've got some high-level people looking out for you. And so I really believe that it won't be that hard for you to get an in somewhere. I believe that with Randy and Josh both being with Bellator, that might be on your radar before the UFC. Am I right?
It's certainly looking like it. It's certainly looking like it. You know, can't go into too many details, but that you know, I do have. Randy's been a longtime friend and mentor, and now Josh is a mentor, and that's exactly where they are. So I would be absolutely honored and thrilled to go that route.
That would be amazing. I'd love to see that. Can you guess? Here's that old trivia question, and this is probably going to be putting you on the spot. And if you get,
all right, give it. Let's go.
If you get the answer, I'm going to be shocked because I think 0 out of 100 people will get it. When was the last time, or at least one of the few times, Randy and Josh, I'm pretty darn sure, were in the same guy's corner? And I'll give you a hint. It was in Pride. Who was the guy?
Oh no. Okay.
I don't expect you to guess. If you get this, I'll fall off my chair.
Oh, man.
That's okay. I
can't get Dan Henderson out of my head, but I know it's not him.
Right. No, I don't believe it's him. I'll give you the answer. I don't think anyone would get it. Bob Sapp.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would have I failed.
That's okay.
There's no way.
No one would have guessed that. No one would have guessed that, especially since Bob Sapp wasn't a wrestler at all. And
that's interesting though.
Yeah,
He's a giant.
Yeah, he was amazing. I think Josh knew him from pro wrestling, and somehow Randy got connected in there, and they were really working on him. They helped him to almost win against a prime Minotauro Nogueira. He did amazing. That was that amazing fight where they had Bill Goldberg on the mic with Bas Rutten and I think Gamoro. And remember when Nogueira shot on Sapp, and Sapp was what, 390 pounds shredded, no USADA anywhere in sight, and he lifted Nogueira up and dropped him. He like almost pile drove him, and Bill Goldberg's going, "Good night, it's over, good night." And everyone was screaming in Japan, you know, and it was just insane. And then Nogueira like handled it, just rolled and ended up catching Sapp in a submission. And that was like after the first 10-minute round. You know, speaking of which, you were doing 10-minute rounds in the catch wrestling, weren't you?
They were 5-minute rounds.
Okay, they for some reason it seemed long, but that's perfect because that prepares you easily for the 5-minute rounds. And it didn't seem like you were gassing at all. So I have a feeling a 5-minute round is not going to be hard for you, even if you had to do 5 of them, which essentially you did, and I think 2 of those fights, huh?
Yes, I did.
I like that.
Yep.
A man.
I wrestled for a total of it was an hour and 32 minutes.
In the same night.
In the same night against 3 guys.
Man, that's crazy. Here's another trivia question from Pride. Which 2 guys fought almost that long against each other? And again, I hate to throw these things where there's no way you can know. And so I'll give you the answer.
Hold on.
Okay.
Is Hoist Gracie one of them?
Yes, he was.
Hoist Gracie.
And as in Pride, there's a hint of who it may have been.
Sakuraba?
Yes, you got it. Awesome. This man is an absolute monster in the cage and in also MMA trivia, and you're a historian of our sport. That was awesome. I would think maybe
my man,
5 out of 100 people would have got that. So yeah, that was incredible. And the result with that was the late Elio Gracie threw the towel in because their grappling was canceling each other out, but Sakuraba's striking was better than Hoist. And I think Hoist would have kept going, but it would have been probably just bad because that was, I think, set for no time limit. And it was like 10 or 15-minute rounds and no time limit. I don't know. And Hoist would have just probably ended up being beaten to a pulp. And it was probably hard for his dad to throw the towel in there, but man, that was incredible. That's probably the last match we'll see like that, where something is set for unlimited 10-minute rounds, and I think it went for 9 of those 10-minute rounds or something. If I'm not incorrect.
Those guys are killers, man.
Yeah,
Warriors.
yeah, they really are. But you are as well. Well, I'm really excited to see what happens next for you, Curran. I know that you may be a few months away. You deserve to enjoy for the holidays. But let me know the next time you have a fight set, and we'll have you back on to talk about it. And I'm super excited to see you do well. I think you're going to be a guy that absolutely proves that your skill set is unique and is going to be very hard to stop in our sport.
Thank you so much, brother. I will certainly keep you updated on everything that's going on. And, again, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.